Not many professions require people to wear as many hats as a farmer. Some of those hats are centuries old. Others are born out of necessity, while others have been added over time to keep up with technology and growing regulations of farms and farming practices. Hello and welcome to South Carolina's installment of Voices of Agriculture. I'm your host, Reggie Hall. During the next 30 minutes, we'll meet some South Carolina farmers and hear about the many occupational hats they choose or are required to wear as family farmers. While there are as many full-time professionals in ag-related areas, most farmers must become experts in a variety of disciplines in order to remain successful. Stay tuned. When Voices of Agriculture continues, we'll head out to the farm to learn more about the many hats farmers must wear on a daily basis. Hello and welcome back to South Carolina's installment of Farm Bureau's Voices of Agriculture. I'm your host, Reggie Hall. We're traveling across the Palmetto State today, learning about the many occupational hats farmers must wear on a regular basis. Man and machine has been a constant pairing of farmers for centuries, whether those machines were powered by man, mule, or liquid fuel. Farmers have long sustained themselves and their trade through ingenuity, creativity, and hard work. Today's farmers face more challenges than any other time. Technology has manipulated the world into a cosmic competitive community. Farmers compete through the changes in world markets, global weather patterns, and science. Farmers have always worn hats of the inventor and mechanic. Since time began, farmers have worked to create a better mousetrap, to automate that which used to be done by hand. Some inventions are simple, while others are much more complex. Take, for example, this wagon, used to harvest vegetables here in South Carolina. Workers still have to pick the commodity by hand, back-breaking work, but now they do it on the move. Once buckets of squash are picked, they're loaded onto conveyors which move them to the wagon where they are culled, washed, and boxed for shipment later in the day. Picked, processed, and packed right there in the field, providing consumers with the best quality, freshest produce possible. Whether farmers work with unique machines like this one, or more traditional tractors, pickers, and combines, they must keep their equipment in top-notch shape. On the farm, time means money. Farmers can ill afford to sit around with broken equipment.
The biggest thing is maintenance. If you maintain your equipment properly, you tend to not have as much downtime. When you get into a planting season or harvest season, you want to make sure all your equipment's ready to go. You don't want to have to stop in the middle of what you're doing in your busy time to work on equipment. So in the wintertime, we try to maintain equipment, change oil, do all of that kind of stuff that you can do in your downtime, so you're ready to go when springtime rolls around.
Another occupational hat of the farmer is meteorologist, a job some say may be most aligned with soothsayer. Farmers must develop skills to predict short-range and long-term forecasts and make adjustments when Mother Nature doesn't cooperate. That may mean adjusting planting and harvesting times, installing irrigation systems, knowing when and how much water to use, and so forth. The meteorologist farmer also knows what equipment to use and when, in order to manipulate Mother Nature as much as possible.
What this does is it tries to keep the water droplets from being formed into an ice. It tries to disturb that movement or disturb the turbulence. So that's a lot of energy.
The 50% line, the red line right there, tells me I'm getting dry and I need to water. I want to hover right here on the green line, and the blue line means I've got too much water. Now, we've had rain for the last 7 days. So both of these events right here are rainfall events. So we had 2 rainfalls that day. We had rain 2 days ago, and we had rain yesterday. So we are not irrigating at all on this farm. But I can go back up here and show you 30 days. And I can show you how we were irrigating before. Come on, update. So this is when the soil moisture probe was moved into this farm, and you can see that we would irrigate every other day, and you could see how we could do a good job of managing that.
Speaking of soothsayer, it's no longer enough just to see, smell, and feel the ripeness of produce. Today, farmers rely on high-tech packing equipment to determine as much about the commodity as possible so goods can be shipped to meet the customer's precise needs. For example, high-speed scanners detect the sweetness, size, weight, and color of these peaches.
We trace it all the way back to the orchard, so which harvest crew was in that orchard, what day they picked it from, what variety it was. Comes to the packing shed, we know exactly where it sat in its storage locations before packing. As it goes through the packing process, we use the technology to help us with our pack outs, what size fruit, what quality we had. Then when it goes into the pack box ready for shipping, we know exactly what's in every box, and we're able to trace that box to every store.
Of course, these high-tech machines also help the farmer with the hat of marketing. The more the farmer knows about the crop and the ultimate consumer, the better he can plan and prepare to meet that market's needs. Stay tuned as Farm Bureau's Voices of Agriculture continues in a moment. Hello and welcome back to South Carolina Farm Bureau's installment of Voices of Agriculture. I'm your host, Reggie Hall. We've talked to family farmers across South Carolina about the many occupational hats they have to wear: inventor, mechanic, and those who have to predict the future to remain successful. Now let's turn to another hat worn by most farmers, the hat of the economist. You might put this in the same category as the soothsayer. Farmers work commodity markets with as much precision and knowledge as possible, seeking to make the right decisions today that will protect their investments for tomorrow. Some say it's a necessary form of legal gambling as farmers struggle with making decisions to hold or sell within an ever-changing commodity market system.
Everything about farming I look at as a gamble. I'm not a gambler, but I am a gambler. I've never gambled like at anything really other than farming, and I feel that's a big enough gamble. In contracting your different commodities, if you book X number of bushels or pounds or bales, then whatever you contract to sell, then you have to deliver that because you normally say that you're going to deliver, let's say 10,000 bushels of soybeans, for example. Well, you can have multiple contracts, and that's what I do. I'll have multiple contracts that I try to book a little bit as the market gets to where I feel like I can make a little bit on that commodity, and then watching the market, if it goes up, maybe book a little bit more, and then a little bit more. But you as far as just sitting there waiting on the highest price, that's usually not going to happen. It's unless they've got that little crystal ball, and I don't believe many farmers do.
Closely associated with the economist is the agribusiness person, who has to keep track of inventory, labor, and all the regulations surrounding human resources so they can maintain all too narrow profit margins associated with agriculture.
A small business like this, a family-run business, you have to wear all the hats. Now my son is back in the business with us now. He concentrates primarily on the marketing, and I deal with more with the human resource as far as the field production. Particularly where we direct market and grow fruit and vegetables, we still depend a lot on hand labor. So it's a lot about people management, learning to work people and treating them like you want to be treated, and treating them with respect, and knowing how to maximize and get good employees so we get the crop out of the field and get in the hands of the consumer.
When all is said and done, family farmers are in the business to turn a profit. If they can't make money, they won't stay in business. After all the bills are paid, the average farmer nets only about 16 cents of every dollar spent on food. That means today's farmer cannot afford to waste time or resources, including the crop and animal protection inputs they use to manage quality commodities. With fertilizer, herbicide, pesticide, vaccines, transportation, and other input costs as high as they are, farmers are not about to use more than absolutely necessary to produce a quality and safe commodity for their plants or animals. Farmers who grow crops wear the hat of agronomist. Livestock producers wear hats of veterinarian and dietitian. As an agronomist, the farmer must develop a clear understanding of soil composition and nutrients to determine the best fertilizer and seed for an adequate harvest. That farmer must also know the effects those products will have on the local environment. And as if cost wasn't a strong enough motivator to monitor chemical use, many regulations are in place to make sure farmers are trained in how to apply those products to their fields.
We have to have a pesticide license to buy most pesticide, and that license is obtained by doing training through Clemson. And then we have to have continuing education points. Every 5 years the license is renewed. So you have to go to enough meetings to learn enough updates on things to get recertified. We have to be good record keepers on the pesticide side, and this is a pesticide book that I keep, kind of a daily log of what we do, what we spray.
Each poultry farmer or dairy farmer or swine farmer, we have to go through what's called a CAM class here in South Carolina. And we go to the class and we take the class, and once we pass, every 5 years, I think it's every 5 years, you have to have 10 hours of recertification credits. Especially dairy farming is one of the most heavily regulated industries in agriculture. I mean, we're inspected several times a year by either the EPA or the DHEC, Department of Health and Environmental Control. They'll come out and they'll take a look at your records, and they'll walk around, they'll check your land and see where you're hauling your manure to, see where you're spreading your wastewater. And they check and make sure nothing's getting in any rivers or streams, and make sure everything's being properly done. It helps us maintain the environment because our natural resources are very important to all farmers, and we do a very good job. We're all environmentalists, and we try to do our best to keep the land as plentiful as possible, and we keep the land where, our families, especially here at the dairy farm, our land here is land that we live on or we live near, and we want to do our best to keep that land healthy and preserve our natural resources.
It's not enough to know where, when, and how to dispose of livestock wastes. Farmers must also wear the veterinarian hat. Ranchers must be able to recognize early signs of animal disease, master healthy feed plans, assist with the birth of animals, administer medicine to sick animals, and take care of other routine animal welfare and care issues.
I get a calf report every morning, and this is one of the first places I come. And I come down here, and if any calf's got the scours, or here lately with the weather being so crazy, pneumonia. It seems like this year, more so than any other year I've been here, we've had a really tough time with pneumonia in the calves. So, we'll treat them whatever, and then we have a little dry erase board, which is kind of funny, but anything that I treat, we write it up on the dry erase board. That way I'll know, like when we treat them, like if we give them a series of 3 shots of an antibiotic, 3 mornings in a row or evening in a row, I make sure it's wrote up so everybody knows what I'm giving them, that yeah, they've been treated, and not to give them anything else. Not that they would, but just to be on the safe side because you don't want to overdose one. As for, pulling a calf, giving a cow calcium that's caved in with milk fever, giving cows boluses or pills for, upset stomach or diarrhea or anything, and your everyday shots, that's just stuff that you just learn to do from a young age, whether by trial or error, you just learn how to do it. And just take on another role that would, 1, save money, and 2, save a vet call, every other day for just doing something minor. Even to the point where, and the vets, I think they appreciate that on some level because they don't want to run out to a farm every day.
Someone recently said during our lifetime we may need an attorney, a doctor, a law enforcement officer, or a number of other professions, but we all rely on farmers at least 3 times a day. When we do, we're not just relying on one person doing one task. We are counting on those family farmers who wear many hats to get our food, fiber, and fuel from the farm to meet our needs. We'll learn more about the many hats of the farmer when Farm Bureau's Voices of Agriculture returns. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome back to South Carolina's installment of Farm Bureau's Voices of Agriculture. I'm your host, Reggie Hall. We're talking with family farmers across the state today about the many occupational hats they have to wear to remain successful as farmers in the Palmetto State. Many farmers recognize the importance of connecting with consumers. Some act as a direct conduit as they transport their commodities from the farm to the fork.
Our family farm is a vegetable farm, grows a lot of your spring crops of squash and zucchinis and bell peppers and things of that nature. And we decided to open a roadside market to retail it direct to the customer. And from there we decided to go from farm to fork and open the restaurant, and now we serve our produce to our customers here in the restaurant.
Farmers know there's a vast chasm filled with misinformation and often unfortunate, purposeful efforts to help the American agricultural industry meet its demise. One way those farmers combat that rhetoric is to reach out to consumers through social media outlets as advocates for agriculture.
Farmers have to do a little bit of everything, and I guess one of the main things that we do is advocating for agriculture and making sure that people understand the importance of agriculture not only in their local community but in our country as well. A lot of people are very confused about the fact that their food can't necessarily come from all of their food can't come from their local farmer. They're going to have to get some things that come from other places just because we can't grow orange trees in South Carolina. So if you want orange juice, it's going to have to come from a Florida or a California grower more than likely. One of the things that I thought was, you know, if people are going to read craft blogs, they would probably read a blog that included things about agriculture too. And so I sat down and started it, and it has its pros and cons. It can be a lot of work, just like anything you do, but it makes a big difference in letting people know just simple things like where their milk comes from, the fact that a brown cow does not give chocolate milk.
Another key role farmers have been forced to play in the recent past, tied closely to the role of advocate, is the role of the political activist. As more attention is drawn to organizations that seem to want to put animal agriculture out of business in the United States, there's a growing need for farmers and ranchers to stand up, speak out, and correct the misinformed and misguided rhetoric of extremist groups. Farm Bureau plays a huge role as an advocate for family farmers. Too often, farmers are in the busiest times of their operations when the call comes for people to testify on behalf of agriculture. Farm Bureau has a world-class government relations team, but there are times when it's just best for lawmakers to hear firsthand from the farmer.
With the growing concern of the feral hogs in South Carolina destroying our crops, our waters, our wetlands, our forests, seeing the need of the destruction that they do, with the help of Farm Bureau, we got a bill passed where it made it legal to hunt these feral hogs at night during certain times of the year. It has played a major role in my production, my time, and also my costs.
If you're not a member of your local Farm Bureau and you appreciate the work of family farmers and locally produced food, fiber, and fuel, join today. Many Farm Bureaus accept new members online. To join the South Carolina Farm Bureau, log on to scfb.org. We've talked about the ingenuity, creativity, and hard work farmers must exercise in order to be successful and to keep us fed, clothed, and sheltered. Those traits are epitomized in this monument at the University of South Carolina School of Medicine Library in Greenville, South Carolina. It recognizes the brilliant creativity of upstate tenant farmer DeRoy Hill, who lost his right leg in 1947 after a gunshot wound. Hill wore the homemade prosthetic for nearly 20 years and was able to continue with his routine farm duties, including picking cotton, without much difficulty. Take a close look and you'll see just how the leg was assembled, much like a well-constructed bird's nest, with farm scraps, baling wire, shop tools, scrap wood, and metal. DeRoy lost his leg, needed a way to get around, and put his creativity to work to build himself a working, functional miracle of an artificial leg. That same ingenuity is at work every day on farms all across this nation. Just think about the inventions and applications of auto-steer tractors, global positioning systems, global information systems, and other high-tech tools to help get our food from the farm to the fork, helping farmers conserve the soil, protect the environment, and provide for a growing world.
The new technology is the global positioning system, the GPS, and there's different variables you can use. With this high boy, we use SF1, which gives you in 8 to 10 inches, and that does well for the spraying. It's close enough. Now we can go on some of the tractors we use for planting, and that gets us within an inch of each row. So whether we can plant, like with the peanuts, we'll plant, and when we come back and dig, we can go to that same field and punch in the same numbers, and those planting positions are still saved in the computer, and with the satellite we can go back to that same inch or within an inch of where those seeds are whenever we come back to dig peanuts. So it's very important, especially with peanuts. I mean, sometimes you can get variables of 200 to 400 pounds. If you get off 4 inches, then you could lose that much in the field, and things like that. It pays for itself.
Farmers even use their cell phones as remote control devices to make certain their livestock is treated with the greatest of care, all the way from the temperature of the barn to the amount and quality of food and water for their livestock.
The houses, they're all, totally environmentally controlled. We have a computer at each house, but, that's not always fail-safe. You got backup generators, and also an alarm system. So, if something were to go out, we get a call.
Like crops, livestock represents a huge investment to the farmer. He'll do all he can to make certain his animals are in the best shape and as healthy as possible.
Stay tuned. When we continue, we'll wrap up South Carolina's edition of Farm Bureau's Voices of Agriculture. Hello and welcome back. Well, today we've introduced you to a number of family farmers to explain the many occupational hats they have to wear to be successful in the farming industry. If you want to know more about those farmers, log on to our website, scfb.org, or follow us on Facebook at South Carolina Farm Bureau Federation. If you want to send us specific comments or ideas for future shows, please email those to voices@scfb.org. Until next time, I'm your host, Reggie Hall. Thanks for watching.